The Candid Frame is supported by donations by listeners just like you. Help us to bring you great conversations with great photographers. Support the show today with your monthly contribution through our Patreon effort at patreon.com/The Candid Frame, or click on the link in the show notes or the website at thecandidframe.com. Thank you.
This is Ibadian X, and this is The Candid Frame. The still image holds an amazing power over us. It's often the singular image that often holds the power to move us, reconsider long-held opinions, and sometimes even affect change. Though the moving image holds much of our attention these days, the still image maintains a unique place in our consciousness. It's that fact that often inspires photographers to use their skills to draw attention to matters that often don't find their way onto the headlines or 24-hour news cycles. Street photographer and friend of the show, Valerie Jardin, was so inspired when she discovered the work of Josh Coombes. Josh, who is a hairdresser by trade, has been offering his services to the homeless, providing them not only an opportunity for physical transformation, but a moment where they can enjoy some human connection and dignity. Together, Valerie and Josh took to the streets of New York recently, and each, in their own way, used their skills to be of service to those that too many of us simply choose to ignore. Well, Valerie, Josh, welcome to The Candid Frame. Valerie, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show. And Josh, I'm excited to have a chance to talk with you for the first time. So welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us.
So you guys have been working on this amazing collaboration with each other. But Josh, it seems to have started with you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this project that you came up with and how it all came about?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'd love to. So it's called #dosomethingfornothing, and this is my role in this is as a hairdresser. That's what I do. I go out on the street and I meet people who are living on the streets, who are homeless or sleeping rough. And this started where I live in London. It was about 2 years ago. And it was really from a feeling quite helpless towards this problem, seeing the magnitude of it. And it was such a large scale for me that I had to start bringing it down to one person and just focusing on that one man or woman and just saying, hey, how are you? And just trying to get a bit more in depth into their situation. And actually, my relationship with Valerie started quite soon, because my first trip out of London to do this somewhere else was to Paris. And I didn't really know anyone. I had a couple of friends, but I really wanted someone to take some photos of this. So I emailed her at random and just said, hey, I'm going to Paris to do this project. I'd really love someone to document this, because, of course, like the photography and the storytelling for me from the beginning was a big, big part of this. I'm not a photographer, but I love photos, and I love kind of what they can bring, especially of people. So I reached out to Valerie, and she hit me back almost immediately, because she's just incredible like that. She's a machine. I've learned that she's just the hardest working person I know. But she emailed back, and she wasn't in town because she actually obviously lives in Minneapolis, but she linked me up with a photographer there. And before you know it, I'm working with this amazing guy called Laurent, and me and Valerie have kept in touch ever since.
There's been, at least in the United States, there's been an increase in homelessness, I think largely as a result of the challenge of affordable housing, at least here in Los Angeles, but I can imagine that it's happened a lot in other major metropolises, not just LA. It's been a problem that's existed for a long time, but it seems to have accelerated in recent years. And as a result, I think it's led to people being sort of not oblivious to it, but sort of numb to it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I couldn't agree more.
What sort of, sparked you to want to be proactive in some way? I mean, was there a certain catalyst that sort of sparked the idea and made you feel like I need and want to do something?
Yeah, I think for me, I completely agree with that take on it that you've just said. I think everywhere you go, every city, this is a problem that's increased and increased. And when you look at the stats, they show it. It's really doubled in a lot of cities in the last 5 years. And like, you know, the reason that this started in me was because these are humans we're talking about. You know, this isn't, there's a hell of a lot of problems in the world, but these are humans on the streets where we live. In probably a lot of places, a very contrasting kind of city, like somewhere like LA where I've been recently. You know, I mean, there's lots of places that cities of haves and have-nots. And for me, I don't fundamentally agree with someone being forgotten about. I was seeing this in London, seeing people sat on the street. I was like, I can no longer walk past and just give some change and feel like this is okay. And I get that not everyone has the time, but for me, it was a wanting me to really just find out more, because it can't just be this view we have of homelessness that a lot of people are there because they're reckless or because of this kind of attitude towards work or something. It's for me, it was like I had to find out more about this, and actually, you know, it's about empowerment. Like, to go just a little bit deeper quickly, it's really like, I can't change all the problems in the world that are going on right now, but I can define what world I live in. And I certainly, I don't want to feel disempowered that I can't at least make someone smile and positively impact someone today. And no one can tell me whether I can or can't do that. So it was actually about empowering myself to go, you know what? You don't have to solve a problem. You can get out there today and just try and make someone smile. And for me, a haircut's a good way to do that, because it's a great way to make someone feel more confident and have more self-esteem.
And one of the things you emphasize about the encounters that you have, it's for you, it's so much more about the connection, about the acknowledgement of that person's humanity, not just the fact that you're providing them a haircut.
Yeah, it's really, when I talk about this in different places now, that's a big focus is for me, this isn't charity, this is connection. There's lots of things in the world and different problems where charity and aid is very much in need, and it works. It really works. Money going from one place to another. For me, I go out and connect with people. I go out and talk to people, and it's a two-way street. You know, I mean, I recognize what it means for me and how I feel after a day of doing this. And I think, Valerie, you know, after we went out in New York a few weeks ago now, and we worked together for the whole week, we felt, you know, we were buzzing at the end of this. And it's okay to tap into that feeling and realize that, like, that's not in a patting yourself on the back, well done me kind of way. It's actually in a way of, it's just very simple. It's very simple. When you connect with another human in this way, and a stranger, and it's endorphins. It's about, you know, how you feel, and the oxytocin in your brain. Like, it's actually scientifically a thing. You know, connection with other humans, it works. It makes you feel good. So yeah, I think less focus on charity and volunteering time, more thinking about what do you love doing, what do you actually feel connected with. And for me, when I go out and do this, it's no chore. This is like, I look forward to doing it. I love doing it. So yeah, and I'm not strange. I'm just a normal bloke. So surely that's accessible for everyone else, you know?
Why did you feel that documenting it, introducing a camera to this was so important?
Yeah, yeah, and I think this is a good time to kind of to sort of really, you guys, I mean, as photographers, and I guess just talking to Valerie more, all I know from a perspective of not being trained or not having any photographing experience personally, I just know that I've always looked at photos, and the things that really stand out to me and that tell a story are those human portraits for me. I love that. I love faces. I love people and eyes, and just those tiny little emotions you can see in someone's face on a still. And I know the people I meet that capturing that is so important, because you can get that moment where someone's looking in the mirror, or where somebody's just seen themselves in a new light. And actually, that's that from the beginning for me. I always had that in my head. I was like, this has to be captured in a real way, not just me sort of on my iPhone, which is what I do when I post it on Instagram, in a way that people can really see.
And Valerie, for you, what was the appeal of this project? What excited you most about, you know, being involved?
Well, from the beginning, when Josh reached out to me, it was 2 years. Actually, I found the original email and I sent it back to Josh this week, which was really funny. It was December 6th, 2015. I was so touched by what he was doing, and nobody had really heard about him yet. You know, now the project has gone viral. There's been a lot of videos and on it, but at the time it was quite new, and I thought, what an amazing person, you know, to want to do this. I was so bummed that I could not move my trip to Paris up a month, because I was going just a few weeks later, and I really wanted to help out, and it felt so close to my heart. So it's just, I always felt like, yes, you can make changes. You can't change the world, but you can change the world one person at a time in your own neighborhood. And I've always I've done this to some extent, just if it's just to have a conversation with someone or bringing someone a cup of coffee, it just warms your heart just to make somebody's day, really. And it doesn't take much. So I thought this was such a wonderful thing. And right away, I wanted to document it. That's why I never gave up. We stayed in touch. I said, someday we're going to be in the same city at the same time. And I was already looking for that type of project. I didn't want to go and work for a big nonprofit where you don't even know, where the money goes and everything. I just wanted something more grassroots. Is that the expression? Mm-hmm. Something smaller scale. And I don't know, I felt that connection with Josh right away. I don't know, it was something in the way we communicated and what I saw, his post on Instagram, it really touched me. And I thought, this is exactly the type of project I'm looking for. A few months ago, as you know, I'm a official ex-photographer for Fujifilm. And a few months ago, I was talking with Fuji and I said, hey, would you guys be interested in sponsoring a project where you'd send me to a city and I'd meet Josh. And originally I was able to go to London and meet him there, and the timing wasn't right for me. And I told Josh, well, would you come to New York? And he said, yeah, he had worked on the project in New York earlier on. He was really excited to come back. So I asked Fujifilm US, I said, would you bring him to New York and send me to New York and just to cover the project? I mean, obviously we'll do it for nothing, but cover our expenses and make this happen. And they agreed. And I was just so thrilled. I remember texting Josh. I said, guess what? You could come to New York. And then we made the plans and we met and hit the streets right away. And it was just amazing. I mean, for me, it was so much more than the photography. It was really about the connections. And it was really important to me not to be just the photographer. I really wanted to connect with the people and not bring the camera out right away and in their face. And I think actually working with my camera and my style helped, because I was not in their space. I wasn't in their face. My camera is quiet. I didn't pull out the camera and start shooting right away. I mean, we would exchange hugs and tears and laughs before I would start shooting, and we established that connection. And I think Josh and I were on the same. We kind of approached it the same way. And I mean, of course, him doing what he does and me documenting it, but on the human aspect, we were right in sync, I feel.
Well, why don't you paint a picture for us? I mean, you guys got together in New York. Where did you go? How did you find the people that that you provided the service to and that you photographed?
Well, we actually met Tompkins Park right away because I had just landed. Seriously, I landed, dropped off my luggage. 10 minutes later, I was at the park. Josh came, and we met for the first time. And seriously, 10 minutes later, he was cutting hair. We knew we only had so many days, and it went really fast. And those people are there. It was that part. It's actually quite easy, right, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, well, it can, so I mean, it can depend, because people, there's obviously, when you go out on the street, you do this outside, like there's the weather, there's what time of day it might be, but we just seem to all work out really perfectly. So yeah, we met in Tompkins Square Park in East Village in New York, and honestly, it was really so great because we met, and then minutes later there was this guy called Tony who actually called us over, and he was sat on a bench. He was like, "Hey, how you doing?" And he just wanted to talk, and it turns out he was homeless. He's actually he's going through chemotherapy right now. He's got cancer, so he wanted to just talk to someone and say, "Hey, this is how my day's going." And then when you start cutting hair, what I find in my experience is that actually when we're just in a park on a bench like that, it's not long before a few people around notice what you're doing. And there were some other guys who were homeless, and they were like, actually, can I go up next? And it turned into like a bit of a barbershop feel. And it's the diversity as well. Like, yeah, it really is about that. I mean, I don't think when I'm doing this about, oh, this is for homeless people. Valerie's right. I mean, she's just got that experience from being on the street photographing this anyway. It's just really about different humans. I mean, we had this guy, Tony, who's Dominican, and he's lived in New York for a while. And then next there was a guy called Janusz, and he's a Polish man he's in his 60s now, but he told us about his story of, post-war Poland when he was younger and moving over with his mother and had the struggles of it all. And it's so interesting to hear people and kind of where they've been at in their life. So during the haircut, we'll talk about that. But I've got a funny story about him to paint a bit of a picture, actually, is that Valerie, she played more of a role than just a photographer, because while I was cutting someone's hair, this guy, Janusz, who I told you about, this Polish man, he actually got quite embarrassed about the state of his hair because he was worried his hair was dirty. And I didn't realize that, but he'd started walking it off out of the park. And I noticed that at the corner of my eye while I was cutting hair. I was like, he's leaving. He said he wanted his haircut. What's going on? And I said to Valerie, I was like, you've got to get him. You've got to run after him, because I've still got my clippers and my scissors in my hand. And she's so great, because she was just like, right, on it, and just went for it and went and walked after him until she grabbed him. And 5 minutes later, he came back. And obviously Valerie had been really sweet and talked through that he didn't have to worry about any of that kind of thing. And it's so nice that happened, because if she wasn't there, I wouldn't have had the chance to do that. And he would have gone. And actually that turned out to be such a beautiful moment, because I didn't care about that. I had some dry shampoo. I sprayed his hair. That's all fine. But we gave him this super great transformation. And he was like in tears at the end of it. And it was just
he looked so handsome. Yeah.
Yeah. So really, I think to sort of summarize that and that kind of day is that, it didn't feel like when me and Valerie were working together, it didn't feel like it felt like a conversation. It felt like just spending time with people. And actually that's a really key approach. I don't claim to be like anyone who can talk to her. I mean, like a homeless person is just a human. I'm not like some homeless whisperer. People ask me, how do you talk to homeless people? I know it's a strange way of putting it, but it's like, it's that right there that was happening. It's just being you, just going out and being yourself. And I think that's what I really felt was happening that day. And we hit the ground running. It really worked,
Mm-hmm.
And most of the experiences you could have had you been working by yourself, would have been very, very different. You, as a person sort of engaging these people, making a haircut, and for you, Valerie, making the photographs. You just made a point of, what a difference having someone else there made. But could you give us a little more in terms of how you think your collaboration made the experience different?
Well, see, first of all, as a street photographer, I never photograph homeless people out of respect, unless I'm actually going to tell a story and talk with them. And so this was just the opportunity to really tell the story. And I was surprised. Actually, I thought, because I had to have them sign a release, because the project was sponsored by Fuji. And they took the time to read it and had no problem signing it. Nobody said no. It was quite amazing. They were so thankful. I mean, I approached it as, I'm documenting this because I really feel that what Josh is doing is so important, and we want to incite people to do things like that in their own town, whether it's for the homeless community or to, for anything else, just to do something for nothing, an act of kindness, random kindness. And they were just so happy, not only to be getting this haircut, but to be part of something bigger. I feel that they saw my role as a photographer. I was part of the team. I was part of their experience. And again, I think it really helped that I wasn't in their face with a big camera, it was very inconspicuous. And I was photographing, but they were not feeling like they were on the spotlight.
Yeah, there was a subtlety, just to kind of like to echo what Valerie was saying. And there was a real subtlety to like to doing what we were doing. It didn't feel like we were really kind of like putting people in any trouble. I mean, I think I've heard a lot before in past experience that I know respect is a big thing, and I always ask people, the way I say it to them is I say, look, if you feel invisible, I'd love to try and help you out with that. Let's try and give you some visibility. If you want me to tell you the story, I can. So it's always about consent, and it's always about approaching a situation the right way. And that's the way I try and do things. And actually, I think people get really worried about this as well, because if somebody wants to be a part of it, then someone on the street who's homeless, God, I think they should be on the spotlight more than anyone. If they want to be a part of it, then I don't know. I just think it's really, really, it's a great opportunity for some people, if they want to be involved, to say, actually, you know what? I'm visible today, and here's who I am, and that's a big part of it for me.
And there were so many amazing moments to photograph. It was, and Josh takes his time. It's not like he's giving a buzz cut. I mean, he's spending an hour or more with each one of those people. It's about talking with them and listening to their stories, and so he really takes his time. So I had a lot of time to shoot and get some different angles. We also pick different. We want this to become hopefully a travel exhibit, and we're going to hit other cities down the road. And so I wanted also some diversity in locations. So not only just a city park. So we did the city park, and then the next day we went outside of Grand Central. The third day we went to the beach at Coney Island, so that I had so that the photographs would, from even though there was the same city, they were from a variety of urban landscape. Even the boardwalk, for me, was important to just not just shoot everything in a public park.
Several years back, I did a photo project on a black barber shop that was near me, and one of the things that I observed there was the physical contact between the barber and the men and the young men that he photographed. That I thought it was a point of vulnerability for the people who were getting their hair cut, but there was also that physical contact that they were being touched. That a lot of people were sitting in the chair were being touched by another man in a way that they normally wouldn't, and that there was a level of intimacy of vulnerability there. And I wonder how the fact that, the people that you were, providing these haircuts to were people that, because of their situation, are often lacking any physical contact from another human being, much less attention. And I'm wondering how that sort of factors into your experience of providing the service to people.
Yeah, well, that's a really, really big part of it. And that intimacy is something that has taken me on a journey as well. I'm quite a tactile person anyway as it goes, but there's definitely with hairdressing, you have to kind of allow yourself to fall into the person and give your trust to whoever that is. Because once you get started, well, that's it. You're not going to pull away halfway. I mean, it's kind of like, it's actually you have no choice but to kind of just ease into that situation. And I find that with people, people can obviously be very cagey when you're homeless and you're in survival mode and you've got, there's sometimes many, many different things that you're fighting in your life right now, and lots of walls that you've built up. And it's kind of great to see how people do just those subtle changes sometimes. It might not even be this big smile and thank you. That's not why I'm doing this. I'm not after that. It's like people loosening up their shoulders, dropping their kind of, just sometimes it's the face and the aftershot. You can see it's almost like wrinkles kind of disappear from someone's face. And I'm like, wow, it just shows you, doesn't it? I could be anyone. Remove the ego, remove Josh, whoever the hell I am from this. It's just that basic thing of just having that contact with another person you might not have had for a while. They could be a complete stranger. And actually, do you know what that has done for me, really, is when you analyze that gives me so much hope. Because that is the basics. That is the basics that still makes someone tick as a human. When you're without something, it's another person who can hopefully inject that in you to give you some hope again, or at least make you feel good. And that for me, it's like I go back to that when I feel a bit hopeless. I go, well, yeah, all of the noise and all of the madness of the world, those basic things, they still matter, and they are still very much what they were thousands of years ago. Yeah. And when you look at that as a model, you go, well, there's still hope. There's still always hope, because when people are down and out, that is the answer. So that's the kind of perspective that I get from this, and that's how I feel about it. But definitely for the people I meet, I think that small moment of intimacy and having that as a hairdresser, I really like that. But the truth is, I think you can get it from lots of things, because I see people who've joined in with this movement who are a vet looking after animals, someone who's a masseuse, someone who's a yoga teacher, different people. This is about, as the movement sort of evolves, this is very much about using those kind of things to connect. And even if it's just your conversation, I think you can still achieve that to a certain degree.
When it comes to street photography, Valerie, you're often, evaluating things in terms of light, in terms of line, shape, gesture. You're thinking in terms of sort of the aesthetic appeal of the photograph. Here you're trying to capture something much more intimate, but I'm wondering how or what skills that you practice as a street photographer helped you to capture the kinds of pictures that you were trying to make here.
I think whenever possible, I was also very much aware of the surroundings. Is one picture that comes to mind is when Josh we're under the railroad tracks near Grand Central because it was drizzling. And so, and he's cutting Evelyn's hair. She's sitting. We ran into a store across the street, asked if we could, because it's really hard for him. He can't really be sitting on the ground or on the sidewalk. So a couple times we went into a local business, asked if we could borrow a chair for an hour. So we did that. And then Avalon, and he has, it's like they're sitting at a salon. He has all the equipment and he's cutting Evelyn's hair. And I was well aware of the business people coming in and out of the station. And to me, it was such a contrast. There was all those people with obviously a lot of money, well-to-do, going about their day, working in New York. And then Josh cutting the hair of this young woman who is on the streets. And there is this photograph of a gentleman in a suit with an umbrella just looking at Evelyn as Josh is cutting her hair. So there is that connection, and so I really look for that. It wasn't always possible. Sometimes it was just us in a park and nothing really happening around us. But ideally, that's the type of photography I wanted to add to the project, not just faces.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. And that's a really, really important aspect when I do this. I love that photo when you see it, this one Valerie's talking about, because the reaction of people while I'm doing this is it's massive, because I don't really get to see that either. And I when I do notice it, it's great, because I'd love to have a camera set up just constantly so I could watch it back, because people walking past, there's very different reactions. There's some people who are very much like, wow, they'll come up and they'll be like, they'll feel this thing and they'll want to be a part of it and they'll be like just there talking to you. And then there is another side of it where sometimes people have said, oh, I hope you're going to sweep that hair up afterwards. What is this? What's going on here? And it's like they don't like it. They're not into it. They're just a bit like, they're a bit confused by the whole thing. And I love that side of it. So yeah, those photos are really great.
And it was also about the little details too, the first look into the mirror that I could catch in the mirror and not on the face of the subject. It's so special that the anticipation, because they're not allowed to look in the mirror until Josh is completely finished.
Okay.
And so, there is that anticipation that builds. They're a little nervous, but they're really getting excited. And so many of those beautiful faces had, smiled with their eyes, and you see that spark in their eyes that wasn't there when we first met them. And then trying to catch that, whether it's when photographing their face or photographing their reflection in that little mirror, for example.
One of the things that's always interesting, that when people choose to do something helpful or altruistic in some way, they can be very well intentioned. But I think inevitably, once they go in, they discover that some of their own assumptions about, in this case, the homeless is sort of challenged. And I'm wondering for each of you what that might have been for each of you.
Josh? Go ahead.
Yeah, and that's a really good question. So I've analyzed something since I've started doing this, which is when you go into a situation with any kind of views or prejudice of any sort, and that's really not a negative prejudice, it's just, of course, you have preconceived kind of thoughts about someone. It's always difficult to go into it with a real idea of just letting those thoughts be changed by situations. By that, I mean, if you've got somebody who has lived 50 years of their life with a certain view of somebody or something, it's pretty difficult to just let that change within a day or week, because it's actually admitting that you might have been wrong for like 5 decades or however long you've been a conscious sort of adult human or whatever. So it's a big thing. And my thoughts about homelessness before I went into this project, I guess, look, I didn't have any reason as to why I thought someone was on the street. Luckily, I didn't really have any my own stereotypes or stigmas to dissolve, because I think I always felt compassionate about this. But it's really interesting though, because when I talk about that and I talk about stereotypes and how we kind of box people, it's like I definitely have that about other people in my life and other things, and now I really learned to just go into every situation with this mindfulness of just like, yeah, I'm just going to admit that I have no opinion of this until otherwise, because that's a big part of it. When I talk to people about this, I know sometimes it's just only admitting you're wrong is the biggest part, but homelessness, just to sort of clarify and get some sort of real facts about this, is the list or the reasons why someone is homeless is as long as your arm. Like, there is no box to place someone in. There is no reason why someone is homeless. Mm-hmm. There's so many things that contribute, and actually there's a huge number of increase. And I think when you look at this, you can't put it into any one reason apart from this, which is a lot of people have more infrastructure and support with family and friend groups and situations than other people. All those reasons, like I said, are so long, but it usually comes down to the sort of fundamental reason that these people don't have support networks like I do. When I've made mistakes in my life and I've gone through hard times, luckily, thankfully, I've had sofas I can stay on, my mum's house to go back to, different things that I can do in my life. But some people really don't have that.
Yeah, and for me, it was I knew very little, and I think you can't help but think, oh, well, maybe it was, they got into drugs or alcohol. I mean, those are all stereotypes. But from talking with, just 10 people on the street that week that we really, had long conversations, it could be anyone. It could be you. It could be me, in a month. And those people had a job, had a house. And one of the women, Melissa, who was trying to get on a bus the next day for a job interview back in Virginia, she said 6 months ago, I had a house and I had a car. I have kids waiting for me in Virginia. And she had an opportunity to go to a job interview if she could only get $37 just to get the bus ticket. This young couple was at one time, quite successful, and they had good jobs. They still had some really nice clothes with them, because they were fine just a few months ago. They had an apartment in New York City. And another gentleman, Roman, who was from Ukraine, he was actually at Brighton Beach, and he moved to the States. His mother was living in New York, so he went to meet her, and I guess they had a big fight. He was actually living in the park just below his mother's apartment. He had been living there for months. So many things we met a veterinarian who was homeless, also in Brooklyn. So it really shattered any preconceived ideas that I had. And again, it's not like I had talked with a lot of homeless people before, always asking about their story and how they got there, but never to that extent. And in that type of intimacy of, we shared tears, we shared laughs, we hugged. It was something. It was life-changing for me, for sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I just wanted to just really briefly add, without getting too political, I think when you have these kind of conversations about a certain demographic in society, this isn't just about sympathy. It's not just about saying, like, when I go out and do this, I'm not trying to just, we're me and Valerie and doing this project too. We're not trying to just paint everyone as an angel. It's about being real. It's about actually, I think some people feel like these conversations we're constantly sympathizing and just trying to help, and these people, why do they deserve it? Well, the truth is no, not everyone is an angel. People have made mistakes, but they're the first people to know about it and admit it when they do. And I think it's more just really about, do you want to live in a society where people have got each other's back and listen to each other a bit and is more forgiving, or don't you? And I think that's like the real fundamental question here. And I know for a fact that I want to live in a place where people do look out for each other and that people have got a bit more time to listen and realize that, yeah, people do make mistakes, but there should be more support to help someone when they do.
Yeah, because I can imagine that people listening to this or see the work, they're going, why are you helping people who are choosing to be on the street, who don't want the help, who aren't being proactive and basically lifting up from their bootstraps? So I have no doubt that you probably have seen or observed their reaction. How do you respond to that?
Well, for me, it's so even those people who, I mean, I probably would say, I mean, having said that, it's probably 1 in 10 people I meet who I feel like is actually saying, you know what, I could have done better, but I don't want to. I'm choosing this life. And when I'm helping those people, I'm like, well, I'm not going to vet anyone, because some people might have come from a very terrible circumstance that they will never have been able to help, and someone might have come from something where they've made decisions that might have put them somewhere. But even that scenario, like, it was actually World Mental Health Day yesterday. I've been thinking a lot about the work that I do and how that relates to that. I see a lot of those issues, and thinking about my life as well. Like, I know what it's like to fall into kind of that pit of sort of depression sometimes, and actually it's quite a struggle to get out of it. And it's I see that a lot too. Is there's another fight going on the street as well, which is, people are homeless, and it's actually, even if there's help, sometimes it's another thing to be ready to accept it. And I know people struggle with that concept. When you're living a clean, healthy life, the decision making might seem a lot easier to you. But there's a space there in the brain where it can perpetuate, and actually it's difficult to get out of sometimes. And I think these are problems too that it just depends on how much you want to help. My empathy for me is I want it to be all encompassing. Even people like that, I'm like, well, you know what? I still believe that actually, with the right kind of support, and if you keep loving someone and keep showing them compassion, eventually they'll be ready. But sometimes people just aren't. And that is difficult. That is difficult, because when someone's got drug addictions, when someone has mental health issues, these aren't people who are all that easy to be around sometimes. It's a challenge, it's not the easiest thing. So I think it's good to touch on that. So yeah, that's a good question.
Tell me about the role of social media, because that's a big component of what you're doing here.
I believe in how powerful this thing that we have in our hands each day is for connecting with each other. There's take a look down any street, on any subway, anywhere, any public space, everybody's on their phone or their tablet, and it's trying to carve a space for altruism within that. You look at why social media is so fantastically popular, and it is about a connection. But obviously, there's different things. People follow celebrities, or they follow music, and I do too. But I think that if we can harness at least a bit of that to try and have those real connections in real life and broadcast that, I think it can really work. And I've seen the response, from posting on Instagram and using this hashtag. People message me every day. People message me every day to want to get involved in this somehow, and ask me advice about how they can do things in their community. And people are looking at this, and it's not because of me, like I said, and who I am. It's just looking at it in a really basic way and going, I've actually heard some people say enough's enough. They've been on Facebook for hours, they've been on Instagram for hours. They come away with a feeling that isn't all that nourishing to them. But then when you see real stuff on there, it gives you hope for this thing. And you can pick up your phone now and talk to someone the other side of the world within seconds. So I just see the potential for good in that. I see the potential to be able to try and get people thinking on an altruistic level and do more in their community.
Valerie, you just came out with a new book about street photography, as well as, teaching street photography all over the world. How has this sort of experience changed or evolved the way that you teach street photography, especially when it comes to people photographing strangers, not just homeless people?
I don't know yet how big of an impact it's had, because it's still so fresh. I know it took me quite a while to actually come down from this experience. Right after shooting on the streets of New York with Josh, then I was off to Paris to teach. And so for me, I was more aware of that when I was on the streets, and I actually did have quite a few conversations with homeless people. I still don't feel right about photographing them, but I think I approached that differently. It's just more about having a conversation, going to shake somebody's hand who is, especially in Paris, they have usually those little pop-up tents, and going to them and talking to them and really changed the way I approach the streets in a way. Instead of trying to avoid those areas because I don't want them to think that I'm there to take pictures, I actually went and approached people and shook hands and gave hugs, and that felt really, really good. Just bringing a smile to somebody's face because somebody cares. But I want to do more of that. I mean, I'm an educator first, but this project with Josh is bigger than anything I've done before. It's definitely those are the most important pictures my camera has ever taken, and I want to do more of that. Definitely with Josh, and I hope we can hit the streets of other cities in the world soon. But definitely keep some space in my life for this type of project. From now on, it's exactly what I needed.
If people listening to this want to become involved or somehow do something similar, where can they go? What are your recommendations?
Well, I would say actually, so that question, as far as where, is sometimes half of the problem. Like when I started doing this, I didn't have anywhere to go or anywhere to kind of like sign on to go, how am I going to help someone? For me, the best thing, if you feel like you want to have these kind of connections in your community, I'd talk to friends. I wouldn't talk to an organization, and I'd think about what day pretty soon, closer to this week than in a month's time, you can just go out for a couple hours and see who you can help in your community. It can be really simple. It can start with a conversation, just sitting down and talking and just sharing some food or some coffee or something. That could be a homeless person, but could also be someone who's maybe, I don't know, you might have to talk to people for this, but someone who's in an old people's home who hasn't got family who go in and see them. People in the local rehabilitation centre, if you care about drug abuse and people are trying to recover from that. Maybe you live in a place where it's an orphanage. All I'm saying is this human connection thing, it might look different to you than it does for me, but I'd recommend talking to friends in your community, thinking about what your skill set is and how you can best use it to try and help, how you can really do what gets you out of bed in the morning that you're passionate about to go and help out in your community. And that's hard to tailor for everyone, but I think when you ask all those questions of yourself, I think it will start to mold itself into something. And rather than thinking it into this big idea that you have to do, minimize it and just go do something tiny, because that snowballs. Go out there and do whatever that may be. That's the easiest thing. And then from there, you'll start having more ideas. I talk to a lot of people who have the best ideas, but they build it up, and it's this huge idea that they work on, and now I'm going to do it. It's better to just get out there and do something today. I genuinely think that.
And as a photographer, and I know your audience is, mostly photographers, is, use your storytelling skills to make a difference, to bring awareness. The power of the photograph, no matter what you're going to document, whether it's something you do yourself and you document it, or you follow someone who is, who is singing at the nursing home down the street or playing the piano. Right. Just document the smiles on the residents, how that impacts their lives. Use those storytelling skills to bring awareness. I think that is it's such a wonderful project for a photographer, and it's going to make you feel good at the same time.
Exactly. And when you post about that, that's a big part of the social media thing, just to come back on quickly. Yeah, please use hashtag #DoSomethingForNothing, because this is about trying to harness it to say, this will inspire other people. Even those small things, even those small moments of compassion, that will inspire people, and it ripples. I've really seen the effect of that. But I know there's a lot of work to do, so it's like, just post about it and show people. I really believe in that. If everyone involved feels like they're involved and they're consented to it, then why the hell not tell people you're doing something nice? I think that's great. I think that's better than we tell on social media so many things about our life. If you're doing something good for someone, hell yeah, you should tell people, and you should try and inspire others to do the same. I really believe in that.
So where are all the different places people can go to? Because you mentioned the hashtag *DoSomethingForNothing. So it's Instagram, and where else can people find out more?
Yes. So the best way right now, and there's going to be more ways to sort of really, really get people involved. But at the moment, the best thing you can do is use your social accounts. So your Facebook, your Twitter, your Instagram, when
you document this, or when you know, as a photographer, you go and document someone else doing this, use the hashtag and post it on those channels like you would, because then it will, the hashtag's a great portal to see all this stuff. At the moment, I'm in the process of rebuilding a website, which will actually have, come sort of the end of this year, beginning of next year, that's going to have a place where people can really share, and it's going to have sort of a grid where people can get involved. I'm speaking to people I have done about trying to develop an app. So these are all things that are churning right now. But the best way really is how you would use social media anyway, but use the hashtag, because that keeps people connected. And then there's the Instagram account, Do Something for Nothing, which I'll feature people's work. If you go on there's a whole grid at Do Something for Nothing. And this is people who are using the hashtag in different places in the world with different acts of kindness. So at the moment, that's a good way to get involved.
And Valerie, why don't you tell the audience the title of your new book and a little about it?
Oh, well, my new book was just published, Street Photography, Creative Vision Behind the Lens. It was published with Focal Press, Routledge. Well, it's the real deal after publishing some ebooks. This one was published in New York, and it's part one is about the fundamentals of street photography, but the core of the book is called Photo Walks, and they're pretty much the creative vision behind a series of, I think over 100 photographs. What was going on in my head when I saw the scene, why I shot it the way I shot it, and it's pretty much being in my head during a photo walk and hitting the streets of Paris, Rome, New York, San Francisco, and so forth. So it's a very personal way of teaching. And so far it's been a big hit. It's on Amazon. But I also want to mention that there will be an ebook coming out probably mid-November. Hashtag Do Something for Nothing, New York City, with Joshua Coombes, with my photographs.
Oh, fantastic!
And that ebook will help raise funds to support Josh and what he does, because my fear is that this guy is just so nice that he's going to become homeless just because he's helping the homeless community, and I'm going to do everything I can to help him keep his rent paid, and so that he can travel and change lives one person at a time. So we're gonna publish this. We have a volunteer doing this for us. Do Something for Nothing is reaching people all over the world, and that's going to be the one of several, I hope. Next we'll have probably Paris and maybe London, and we'll work as a team on other projects, and hopefully some curators will be interested in showing the photographs in some galleries. So, but right now, it's all about supporting this project and Josh.
Well, guys, thank you so much for sharing the story, and really excited to have the opportunity to share it with the Candid Frame audience. So thank you.
Thank you, Ibarionex.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
Thanks to Valerie and Josh for sharing their time and their story. And thank you for your continued support of The Candid Frame. If you haven't already, please take the time today to write a review in the iTunes Store. Your ratings and comments help people to discover the great conversations that we offer here on TCF. Thanks to Tony Yellow from Sweden and A.M. Geyer from the U.S. for their 5-star reviews. You can also support the show by making a monthly contribution through Patreon. Visit patreon.com/The Candid Frame, or you'll find a link in the show notes and the Candid Frame website. Or if you just want to make a one-time contribution to the show, you can do so via PayPal by clicking on the donate button on the Candid Frame website or the show notes. To access our complete archive of interviews, download the free Candid Frame app, available for Apple iOS and Android. It's the fastest and most convenient way to hear and save any of the great interviews we present here at TCF. Links for each can be found in the show notes and the website at thecandidframe.com. The Candid Frame's audio engineer is Martin Taylor, who you can find at theothermartintaylor.com. The show's senior producer is Cynthia Parker, and our music is from Kevin MacLeod, whose royalty-free music can be found at incompetech.com. And you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at simply @Ibarionex. And this is Ibarionex, and this is The Candid Frame.